It's a new day on Breakfast Central. Good morning to our viewers here in Nigeria, watching us online in any part of the world that you might be joining us. We're excited to have you here. And of course, we have some of the biggest conversations happening in Nigeria to share with you this morning as usual. Please remember that you can join the conversation sometime in the 8 o'clock hour via phone lines. Let us know your thoughts on any of the conversations that we're having. You can also tweet at us this morning at News Central TV, and let's share your thoughts right here on screen. One of the things that we, of course, will be talking about this morning is the slight confusion with the NNPC and the Dangote deal. There initially was meant to be a 20% stake, or ownership rather, of Dangote's refinery by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited. But a couple of days ago, Aliko Dangote revealed rather that the NNPC will only be getting 7.2% of the Dangote refineries, and this has created a lot of confusion across Nigeria, with many people asking what exactly must have happened. Is it that the NNPC couldn't afford to get its 20%? Did the NNPC have a change of heart somewhere in between? And the lack of clarity has created these talking points across the country in the last few days. For those who have followed the story, it was meant to be a $2.76 billion payment from the NNPC to Dangote refineries to get the 20%. The NNPC was only able to make a $1 billion payment with 36 million naira charge on it. $36 million, I beg your pardon, charge on it, and was, of course, left to pay $1.76 billion. But in the last couple of days, it has been revealed that the NNPC was not able to make that $1.76 billion payment. But one of the questions that we're going to be asking this morning is some clarity. It wasn't meant to be a cash payment from the NNPC. It was meant to be an agreement that it would be given 300,000 barrels per day to the Dangote refineries. And so in the last couple of weeks, we've also seen the Dangote refineries struggle to get petroleum products and crude oil with which to refine. It has even talked about buying crude oil from Brazil to refine. These controversies and these questions and this lack of clarity are some of the things that we hope that we will be speaking about this morning with David Hundeyin, who joins us. And also, what is going on with Nigeria's manufacturing sector and how are they coping with current realities across the country? We will have the Lagos chairman of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria join us, and he also will be exploring some of these conversations this morning, amongst many other things, and also bring you updates on the situation in Plateau State, where 22 young Nigerians were said to have lost their lives in a building collapse. These and many others will make our conversations this morning on Breakfast Central. So stay with us. Let's first of all share with you what our top stories are, and right after that, we'll bring you breakfast headlines.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Headlines. I am Olive Emodi. We begin in Kano, where the Kano State High Court has issued a restraining order against Emir of Kano, Aminu Ado Bayero, and 4 other emirs from Rano, Gaya, Bichi, and Karaye, preventing them from parading as emirs. Delivering the judgment on Monday, Justice Amina Adamu Aliyu further restrained the 15th Emir of Kano and 4 other dethroned emirs, servants, privies, and any other persons appointed by them. The case was filed by the Attorney General of Kano State, the Speaker, and the Kano State House of Assembly, represented by Counsel Ibrahim Isa Wangida, on May 27th. Now, moving on, the federal government has reached on an agreement with the United Arab Emirates to allow Nigerian passport holders to obtain visas for travel to the Arab nations starting Monday, July the 15th, 2024. The Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, disclosed this on Monday when he briefed State House correspondents following the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting. The announcement comes more than 2 years after the UAE suspended visa issuance to Nigerians after diplomatic rows with Africa's most populous nation. And now Nigeria's Senate has thrown its weight behind the bill seeking to create special seats for women in Parliament, in a bold move to achieve women inclusion in the legislature. One member of Parliament, Diket Plank, while addressing newsmen during a one-day seminar on the role of the legislature in advancing women inclusion, peace and security, organized by the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, says the bill will create stable governance in the country and pledged the support of other members of the Senate. And now we move to Rivers State politics, where the Martin Amewule-led Rivers Assembly has suspended all expenditures of Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara until he represents his budget before the House. The lawmakers gave the governor a 7-day ultimatum to represent his budget, which has expired. Rivers House leader Major Jack moved the motion to bring up a resolution alerting the House of the governor's 7-day deadline for presenting the 2024 budget to the House. And now we step away from Nigeria to Gambia, where lawmakers on Monday upheld the 2015 ban on female genital mutilation despite pressure from religious traditionalists in the West African country, rejecting a controversial bill seeking to overturn the law after months of heated debate. International rights groups and the United Nations had urged MPs to reject the bill, saying it threatened years of progress and would have seen the Gambia become the first country to overturn a ban on female genital mutilation. And now we move to the east of the continent, Kenya, where President William Ruto on Monday accused the US-based Ford Foundation of sponsoring anarchy and funding anti-government protests that descended into deadly mayhem last month. The East African powerhouse has been plunged into a political chaos over the demonstrations, which started out as peaceful rallies led by Gen Z Kenyans against proposed tax hikes, but have sprawled and spiraled into a wider campaign against Ruto and his administration. Dozens of people have been killed since the protests began a month ago, with the deadliest day on June 25th, when angry crowds stormed Parliament and police fired live bullets on protesters. And that's all we have this morning on Breakfast Headlines. We head back to Breakfast Central in a moment.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Very interesting stories there in Breakfast Headlines. Of course, we'll bring you another headlines, of course, by 9 a.m. This morning. But, you know, just before, of course, we get into it, I think there's something that you mentioned that I thought was pretty interesting, which was the reaction by Kenyan President William Ruto about the involvement of the United States and the Ford Foundation sponsoring the protests in Kenya. Which, you know, when I heard it, my very first reaction for, you know, a story like this is welcome to the club to William Ruto. And the reason is, you know, so he might be saying the truth. He might, you know, really be also be looking for excuses to blame the protest on. So there are two angles to it. There's a part where, of course, the protesters have a right to, of course, express their grievances and their anger towards the Kenyan government and the William Ruto government, and that might genuinely be the reason. There's also the possibilities that these protests have been engineered, because over time I've gotten to learn that a lot of the mass protests that you see in many countries in the world are sponsored. You know, they're engineered, you know, somehow, some way. A lot of people might believe that they genuinely are protesting their grievances, you know, against the government, which could be true, but there are certain aspects of it that are sponsored and just keep the protests going much longer than they probably should have.
We've seen it in African countries.
We've seen it in many places. The Arab Spring, you know, was mostly engineered. And we've also seen it, you know, I always would use Ukraine and the Color Revolution in 2014. But he's not the first person to have blamed these non-governmental organizations from the United States as, you know, the reasons behind protest. And if you followed, you know, very closely historical elements, you know, with many of these protests, you realize that he's actually saying the truth. It may not be the case in Kenya, but there's an element of truth with these NGOs in many countries. There's a group called the Association for the Endowment of Democracy or something like that. It is owned by or is sponsored by one of the world's richest men. His name skips my mind now. Can't remember his name. But he basically, you know, funds that NGO, and it is one of the, in quote, tools that has been used to disable governments in many places of the world through this color revolution. So, you know, I may not agree with William Ruto, but I agree with the part where there's that possibility that NGOs and these bodies that are, you know, funded by the United States government or by Western powers are used to topple governments in many parts of the world, and it might be what is going on in Kenya. But it doesn't take away the grievances of the people.
Exactly.
Yeah, it also might not be, and that's why I started with that.
So, whilst I agree with your position, I understand that, yes, a number of these protests are sponsored. If we bring it back home to Kenya, it does seem like a medicine after death situation, because the grievances of the people are valid. Ever since you got into power, life hasn't been made easy for them. The tax bill, the finance bill just seemed like it's further wanted to snuck out the life from the people people. You just felt like life kept getting progressively worse as opposed to being better for them.
Very true.
And also, the protest didn't have to pan out the way that it did. At the point where the protest started, his body language did not show the remorse. It didn't show like he could feel
100% true.
he could feel the challenges that the people were going through.
The action of police officers, security agents in Kenya.
Speaking about the police officers, I did see a speech that was being granted, a media chat, I believe, or he was giving a speech. I can't say what event it was though, but in the event they were saying something about how they had done investigation about the killings, and they found the body with one person, and they've seen several other bodies with the person, and they will need help with identifying these bodies. In a way, some would say that it implies that they are trying to shift the blame of the killings that were done at the protest to a potential serial killer as opposed to the police. But the police had a role to play. The police shot live ammunition at
Very
people.
true.
And it was covered. There were clips to show this. So I'm hoping that this will not be another sweeping under, even though my hope is really little, that it will not be one of those cases that will be swept under the carpet and nothing, absolutely nothing will be done about it. Amnesty International has called them out, Human Rights Watch, all the democratic bodies around the world have spoken against what exactly has happened in Kenya, and it didn't have to get this far.
Very true.
It could have handled
I
it
agree
with
with
so
you.
much more wisdom.
100% agree with you, that they also erred. And that's why I started by saying that I'm not taking away the part where Kenyans may truly be aggrieved by William Ruto's government, even previous government, Uhuru Kenyatta's government, leading up to, the protests now. So there's that, but I'm only speaking mostly on the part where he fears or he has concerns that these protests might be engineered and sponsored by the Ford Foundation. Like you mentioned, the person I was trying to remember is George Soros. He, of course, owns the, I think it's the Movement for the Endowment of Democracy or some group like that.
And to mention for governments around the continent that are probably concerned about the influence of the West and all these non-governmental organizations that are undercover sponsoring protests. If your government is doing the right thing, you would not be afraid of protests, because the majority of the people, if you can, honestly,
the idea of toppling a government, the idea of toppling the government doesn't necessarily have to be because the government is bad.
Majority of the cases on our continent where there have been attempts to topple the government, majority of them have been because the people have been grossly dissatisfied. If not, why would people warmly open their arms to military rule? Because there's a hope for a better life.
If you want to find fault anywhere in any government, you would always find fault.
I agree.
If you want to find 1,000 people who are angry with any government in the world, just name any government, the best country you can think of, you would find 1,000 people.
I agree.
So you can always, that's why I say this engineered a lot of times, you can always find 1,000 people that you can convince that this government is the worst thing that's happened to their country anywhere in the world, and they will line up in the streets and protest for you. And that's why it's an engineered protest. It's not necessarily because that's the general feeling. There are many protests that if you take a census across the whole country at the time that the protest is happening, I always use Ukraine as an example, you realize that a good 80% of the people still fully support that government. But what you see in the news and what you see in media reports and what you see on the streets is a completely different story, because those things are engineered. It's a long discussion. But I don't want to waste too much time on it.
Yes,
the point is, Kenyans might and are truly aggrieved, and they have every right to be.
It's not might, it's out, yeah.
Yeah, and they have every right to be. But, him mentioning this was just an opportunity for me to say to him, welcome to the club. Because there's many other presidents who have experienced this before, and, we're right, but nobody listened to them. Anyway. Nigeria's federal government says that it has concluded plans to disburse a $10 million grant secured from the World Bank's Innovation Grant Facility for different vocational and technical skills acquisition programs across the country. Now, this was made as the Federal Ministry of Education and the World Bank concluded its selection process of 78 technical and vocational professionals expected to implement the training programs. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu tells us more.
It's yet another government initiative to combat poverty and unemployment in Nigeria. This time, it's the World Bank's Innovation Grant Facility expected to be disbursed to these successful entrepreneurs who went through a thorough selection process by the Innovation and Effectiveness in Acquisition of Skills project, also known as IDEAS, under the supervision of the Federal Ministry of Education.
It took the Ministry of Education, hard work, the World Bank, sacrifices of so many persons for this program to come to be. And I want to use this opportunity to plead with each and every one of us that this is an opportunity for the Nigerian child to learn a skill, to acquire a skill. And you are the instrument, you are the tool that will help the Nigerian child to acquire this tool.
Do what we can. A lot of people in the last, I can train 10,000, I can train 20,000. Then when it came to the training, we are seeing 100, we are seeing 156. Fantastic, do what you can do. If you don't tell us you can train 5,000 and then you train 5,000, some of you even train the training modality. The training modality is physical. If you train virtually, you're not meeting the criteria and you will not get the next tranche.
This training session unveiled the rules of engagement in the utilization of the grant, which the federal government and the World Bank say will be strictly monitored.
This is a loan to the government from the bank that is now given to you as a grant, a very huge risk. Very huge risk. And then you are expected to utilize that to train young Nigerians to the extent that they will be able to get employment. So your work starts from enrollment of these young people to job placements.
When we talk about innovation, every aspect of the, in Nigeria or everywhere now, without technology, they will not have any innovation. So we are using the technical or the innovation in digital innovation to create or to teach the youths.
The innovation facility was designed to promote the acquisition of these critical skills that we need now in this digital era, so that youths are empowered and trained. So the entire IDEAS project, the project has several components, and the innovation grant is just a component with about covering about $10 million US is being designated for this innovation grant facility.
A total of 51,100 trainees are expected to benefit from the program, which will last for 1 year. In Abuja for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Thank you, Emmanuel Bagudu, for that report. It may have come as a shock to many Nigerians following the statement made by the chairman of Dangote Group and owner of Dangote Refinery, Aliko Dangote, stating that the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, no longer owns a 20% stake in Dangote Refinery. Rather, the Nigerian oil company now owns only 7.2% of the refinery due to the NNPC's failure to pay the balance of their share, which was due last month in June. Reacting to the statement made by Dangote, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPCL, clarified why it holds only a 7.2% equity in the $19 billion Dangote refinery instead of the widely speculated 20%. Through its Chief Corporate Communications Officer, Femi Shoneye, the NNPCL says its decision to reduce its investment was based on commercial reasons and was carefully considered and communicated several months ago to Aliko Dangote.
Now, it is not a hidden report that the national oil company is struggling to pay international oil traders a backlog of $6 billion amid subsidy removal. And there are fresh plans to borrow an additional $2 billion in crude oil-backed loans from international creditors to boost its financial inflow. Concerned Nigerians are asking why the Dangote refinery isn't getting the needed support on investments, and what could be the major reason for the sudden pause in investments. Joining us is investigative journalist who has, of course, taken an interest in for a while in the Dangote refinery, and of course has made his views known about the refinery project for many, many years now. David Hundeyin. Good morning, David. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. I mean, I think a lot of people are familiar with your views on the refinery project. You've never really had a lot of faith in it. And so let's first of all start with that. You know, have your views changed lately? Do you think that, you know, this is just like you've always stated, that it was never a project that would that was viable, you know, the way that it was initially promoted? And are these clear signs, you know, that you were right all along?
So I guess I should specify that my argument was never that the project doesn't have any chance coming to fruition. My argument was that the project was being politicized, was being used as a political battering ram. It was being used as a political tool, and that the project management was being characterized by political chicanery, such as for example, the constant shifting of deadlines. So it's going to be open this year. It's going to be open next year. So if you've been if you've been keeping up with the amount of times that the deadline for full opening of the refinery has been mooted, it's been shifted no fewer than 9 different times from when we first started hearing of this refinery in 2013, which was 11 years ago. So that was always the bone of my contention, that there's a political game going on here, because it's only when politics is involved that people are used as footballs like that. But going to your question about basically what I think of the refinery now, again, the management of the Dangote refinery obviously should feel free to prove everybody wrong if they feel as though there's the impression that maybe it's not being taken serious, or maybe the public doesn't have faith in the refinery. They should feel free to prove the public wrong, because from the last time I appeared on this show, in fact, to talk about this very refinery, which was just a few weeks ago, 2 different deadline shifts have happened again since then. So we were told before the end of June they're going to be producing petrol, and then it was before the end of July, and then as at yesterday it's shifted again, August. Now, what I said last year, which was based on insider information, was that it's very unlikely that this thing was ever going to start full production till at least 2025, right? And when I made that statement, this was in June 2023. We're in July 2024 now. We're looking at the second half of 2024, and the goalposts just keep on shifting. So, and then this piece of information that came out yesterday, where it seems very much as though the NNPC has not followed through on its word. I mean, it was very big news at the time that the federal government had adopted a 20% stake in the refinery. That was widely interpreted to mean that the Nigerian government was throwing its weight, its very considerable weight behind the refinery, which in and of itself would have been good news, because let's be very clear about this. Nigeria does need local refining capacity. It's a travesty that one of the world's most significant oil exporters doesn't have significant local refining capacity to satisfy its own local demand, and that Nigeria keeps on adhering to that African economic stereotype where we export unfinished material, raw material, and import finished goods, which is a surefire way of keeping yourself in poverty, right? So it's in everybody's interest for this refinery actually to work, even if it's not earning export income, even if it's just for the sole purpose of reducing the amount of forex that is used to import refined petroleum products. That in and of itself would be a good thing. So there's nobody who doesn't want this refinery to work. However, I think both the management of the refinery and increasingly the federal government are not being honest. There's clearly something afoot here, where you have in the space of 1 year from when President Buhari left office, where you've had such a marked shift in position from the government, where the government, which at the time Buhari left office was almost referring to Dangote refinery like it was part of a Nigerian federal government portfolio. And then you have a federal government under Bola Tinubu, which is now making comments like the investment in Dangote refinery didn't align with our strategic goals, whatever those strategic goals might be. I don't know how a Nigerian government would say that a project of the size and scope of Dangote refinery and the economic importance of Dangote refinery doesn't match its strategic goals. So you'd have to ask yourself, what are the strategic goals of such a government then? That's for them to answer.
All right. Thank you very much for explaining that very clearly. So what will then be the implications of, what the latest update is from 20% to 7.2% equity. Also, we did hear of the deal that the NNPCL entered into with Lekki Refinery Funding Limited in September of 2021. They had gotten $1.036 billion to be a part of this Dangote project. Unfortunately, even though they had said they're going to be paying with 35,000 barrels per day for this debt, what happened to it in the first place? Why? Maybe this is a way to ask for you to maybe help us get an explanation as why it dropped from 20% to 7.2%.
To be honest, the only person who can answer that question, or the only organization that can answer that question, is the NNPC itself. However, from the little that I know, it's clear that the political situation is at least partially responsible for what we're seeing. That the position of the federal government has shifted significantly over the past year, where, as I said, from the Buhari era position where the NNPC was willing and able to bend over backwards to provide whatever help or assistance was possible, including assistance which Nigerians were not even informed about, which may have skirted the realms of of legality, to a situation now where, as I said, NNPC is now making comments like this does not align with our strategic interests, whatever that means. So from the little that I know from the political situation in Abuja, it does seem as though the person, the man, Aliko Dangote, for whatever reason, is not in the best graces of the current government for whatever political reason. Again, I don't want to sort of come on TV and, repeat people's theories, because the information that I have access to, it's impossible to verify independently. So there's this theory and there's that theory. He may be aligned with so-and-so politician. There's no way to verify that independently. But what we do know, which is publicly provable, is that the government's position, which is directly traceable to the political situation in Nigeria, has changed. So where it maybe a year ago, we wouldn't even have been having such a conversation. There was no kind of inputs, there was no kind of assistance, there was no kind of help that the government wasn't ready and willing to offer. Now we have a situation where even obtaining feedstock for the refinery has become an issue, where Nigeria, which is a significant oil exporting country, all of a sudden suddenly cannot find feedstock for Dangote refinery, one of the world's largest refineries. And we're now hearing stories about Dangote having to import feedstock from the US and from Brazil and whatnot. And what that would mean inevitably, if the refinery is having to spend forex to import feedstock from abroad, then what that would mean inevitably is that the usefulness, the economic usefulness of the refinery, which is primarily supposedly to ease pressure on Nigeria's forex reserves, that goal will not be achieved, because the pressure on Nigeria's forex reserves will remain at least constant, if even to maintain production or to kickstart production, one has to spend US dollars to import feedstock. Then that would mean that even the price at which one would even be able to sell the finished product, if one is selling in Naira, one will have to sell it at a price that will enable one to recoup one's US dollar investment. So you might end up with locally refined petroleum products, which are even more expensive than petroleum products that are already on the market, which does not help anyone. Or you will end up selling to the international market, which probably will be good for Dangote, but again, in the context of Nigerian consumer, also doesn't help anyone. So the Nigerian government is actually the main villain here, is the main culprit here. So questions need to be asked of the people in Aso Rock, that what is it that Dangote or the Dangote refinery has done to them that in the space of 1 year, their situation and their position on it has changed so dramatically? Something that is such a major part, or should be such a major part of Nigeria's economic strategy, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they're acting as if it's a minor irritation or something.
Ask if we know for sure what exactly has become of the $1.036 billion funding, seeing as Dangote is saying the NNPCL was not able to pay their own part, and that's also not forgetting the Afrexim deal as well. Do we know what has become of these debts, and should we even have the right to ask?
We absolutely should have the right to ask, but again, as I've said on this show before, the management of the refinery definitely doesn't help its own case, because where it's convenient, the management used to love to hide behind the government and act as though it used to be very happy to accept government assistance, including assistance which, as I said, skirted the rules of legality where it was convenient. But where it was convenient, it would also hide behind the fact that it's a private entity and it's not entitled, or we are not entitled to certain pieces of information. So now we have a situation where, as you said, there are all sorts of deals and contracts that were signed, which were public knowledge. All of a sudden, we're not hearing anything about those things. Even as I was referring to a few moments ago, even the fact that somehow accessing feedstock is a problem, there should be a public explanation for that, right? Even if for whatever reason the political situation has changed and the government isn't forthcoming with an explanation to Nigerians, I believe the refinery itself or the management should be forthcoming with such an explanation. Instead, we have people making greasy sort of conspiracy-light suggestions, people coming out and saying there's an oil mafia which is even more powerful than the drug mafia, and the oil mafia is trying to ensure that this refinery is a stillbirth, which, again, that's not a solid pointer as to what's happening. That's just a tantalizing hint thrown in the air, right? We need to know. I believe we're entitled to know. Given that, first of all, this refinery was given massive access to public money, to funding from the CBN, and it's been marketed for more than a decade now as the panacea to Nigeria's economic woes, and the management of the refinery was very happy for it to be used politically. I believe that if for whatever reason things aren't going well now, the public is also entitled to an explanation. What exactly is going wrong? Why exactly are things not going the way they are supposed to go? As you said, there's an Afrexim deal. What happened to that? The announced value of the NNPC's investment, all of a sudden that has changed. It has more than cut in half. What happened? The NNPC had agreed to supply so and so number of barrels per day of feedstock. All of a sudden, that's not happening. Why is that? Essentially the oil production cartel in Nigeria supposedly has locked this refinery out of the Nigerian supply chain, and the only place for this refinery to access feedstock is importing from across the Atlantic. What is going on with that? I believe we're entitled to these explanations, but both the management of the refinery and the federal government are very intransigent for some reason, because for whatever reason they believe that Nigerians, they maybe just sort of shut up and wait for things to happen as and when they happen, which I fundamentally disagree with. But here we are.
I think many people would agree with you. There's not been a lot of clarity from the Nigerian government, from the NNPC, and of course all the government agencies when these questions are asked. Many people, of course, are directing the questions to the NNPC to clarify exactly why they couldn't meet up with the remaining $1.76 billion payment that would have likely sealed their 20%. But I also want you to talk a little bit more about the oil-backed loans that the NNPC keeps getting itself involved with. The Afrexim, and of course others that, for example, this balance of 1.76 was going to be paid with 300,000 barrels per day from the NNPC. So clarify if the NNPC is also struggling with oil production. We have an OPEC quota we're meant to be meeting. We are struggling to meet that one. At the same time, we're getting into oil-backed loans with different places here and there. How much of a struggle is the NNPC likely in to meet up with these oil-backed loan commitments and to, of course, generate crude oil?
So we don't have to go far. to get some sort of indication as to what is happening with the NNPC. As you rightly said, the OPEC quota that Nigeria has, I believe the last time Nigeria actually hit its OPEC quota with some regularity was coming up to a decade ago. So I think all through the majority of the Buhari years and continuing into the current era, it became a norm that Nigeria doesn't get anywhere near either its optimum daily output or its OPEC quota. It's just a normal thing now. At a point last year, Nigeria's oil production actually fell as far as, I think, 800,000 barrels per day, which is like a historical low that hasn't been experienced maybe since the early 80s or something like that. So clearly, the NNPC is struggling. And in addition to the NNPC struggling to fulfill its quota, the oil production of Nigeria in general, or at least the official oil production of Nigeria in general, is really struggling. Why I said stated is that, again, there are several indications which are not independently provable, but there are several separate pieces of information which has come out over the past 3 to 4 years, which indicate that there's an incredible amount of oil theft going on. So if Nigeria officially produces, let's say, 1.3 million barrels per day, the actual amount of crude oil being produced might be double that. We have basically no way of knowing. So there's an incredible amount of oil theft going on, both onshore and offshore. It's essentially a free-for-all. Kind of like how there are these deeply entrenched cartels in illegal mining, which basically nobody outside of that space knows anything about. There are similar and even more deeply entrenched cartels in oil extraction. And there's an international angle as well, because even allegedly some of the international oil majors also have involvement in these things. So again, we don't even know how much oil Nigeria is producing. The numbers we have access to are the official numbers, which are almost certainly nothing close to the reality. So it's clear that the NNPC is struggling to meet its targets. But again, being the Nigerian government institution that it is, it doesn't seem to believe that Nigerians are entitled to ask questions or to know about these things. Probably if the GMD of the NNPC is watching this interview, he's probably going to be irritated that why is NNPC's issue being discussed in the press? It's not our business, because the NNPC fundamentally doesn't see itself as a government parastatal, which it is. It sees itself almost as a private entity, which it categorically is not.
Thank you very much, David, for joining us. We're going to keep following up with the NNPCL story. I've been seeing calls on social media for a number of people have been saying that the Senate should probably call them, the National Assembly should call them to the NNPCL, that is, to answer some questions. But I don't know how that is going to pan out. I guess we're going to wait and see how it turns out. Thank you for your time with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to break, and when we come back, we have more conversations to look at this morning. Stay with us.
The police chief, Kayode Egbetukun, has pulled the brakes on the new electronic vehicle registration process, ECMR, that was set to launch on July 29th. The move comes after the Nigerian Bar Association's Section on Public Interest and Development Law stepped in, demanding a halt to the program that would have forced vehicle owners to pay almost 6,000 naira for a special certificate.
But let's not get too excited. The police, through its public relations officer, Muyiwa Adejobi, has said that it's only taking a step back to educate vehicle owners about the benefits of the Central Motor Registry Information System, ECMRIS, which is designed to keep all vehicles, including motorcycles, safe and secure by collecting owner data and using it to flag stolen vehicles and more. Though it appraises the suspension, the Nigerian Bar Association Section on Public Interest and Development Law, NBA Spidal, however, maintains that the suspension alone is insufficient and calls for the complete abandonment of the policy. Joining us now is legal practitioner Steve Adaramoye. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, for having me.
All right. So now let's get into the conversation. Right now, the police have announced that they haven't abandoned it. They have only suspended it, meaning that there will probably be an intention to bring it back much later. NBA has criticized this. Talk to us about the legality or otherwise of this ECMRI.
When you look at the policy, it is something ordinarily that is supposed to be backed up by law. Three things are involved. Issuance of certificate. If you're on the line, I mean, you are caught, you are not having the certificate issued, then you'll be fined. Now, coming to those three analyses, only an institution given power to issue certificate can do so. Then, if the foundation, the beginning, is outrightly invalid under the law, then the issue of fine itself, you cannot fine somebody. In fact, that is a subsisting case. The, what do you call them? This organization, road safety, you know, if they get you, check your certificate, I mean your vehicle, yes, and all those things. Yes. And they discover that you are not having any one of them. Then the next thing, they will find you and said you to go and pay so amount of money to such a place. A lawyer took them to federal court about 5 years ago. Because of the ignorance of the people, these people are cashing on. You cannot find somebody. There is a presumption of guilt before you can find somebody and you ask him to go and pay. So on that something, an only court of competent jurisdiction can ask you to go and pay. I mean, can find you guilt of an offense. So it's as good as that. So many people are still walking on the road in Nigeria today, and the EFCC, I mean, road safety corps, we ask them to go and pay certain amount of money. All those things are quite wrong. Now, coming back to this very one, only an institution, license, given authority, by law, can issue certificate. It's just like WAEC or NECO. So if, I think it's bastardization of the rule of law, because, I mean, the rule of law is separation of power. Separation of power, simply say, only the legislature can make law to that effect. The issue, I mean, the institution called the Nigerian police, is an enforcement of the law made by the legislature. You understand? So to that extent, any law made by an institution that is not invested with such power goes to an issue. In as much that I appreciate the fact of what they are trying just to do. On one leg, it's right, and on another leg, it borders on impunity and corruption. Nothing but more. I mentioned three things now. Yeah. The issue of issuance of certificates. They don't have power. Nobody have given them that authority. They are law enforcement agents. Only the legislature. And that is why the MBA is very critical of that very issue. Then the issue, I said, that's the foundation. Then the issue of fining somebody. Fine is a penalty. Fine offense. And only a court of competent jurisdiction. You know, you can't be something or nothing and expect it to say it might collapse. You understand? So when you look at those things, what they are based in, they are something, I'm not sure, is wrong. Even though security of lives and property, under section 14, subsection 2 of the Constitution guarantees. The issue of security of lives and property of Nigerian citizens. But when you want to do right thing, it must be done in the right way.
Can you speak a little bit more about the court case you mentioned that the FRSC was taken to court?
Yes.
But how did
what
that
actually? Go? No, the court said that the decision, I think it's about 5 or 6 years ago. A lawyer was apprehended, like any other Nigerians. But by virtue, and even many lawyers have been arrested, and they don't care about it. But in his own case, he took it further. That these people does not have power to go and say, I'm fined. Go and pay so amount of money. When you are fined, that is a presumption of guilt, of commission, of breaking of a law. You understand? So that presumption, and when you are, there must be fair. You can't just say, oh, go and do this, I'm finding you this. You understand? There must be, will I say, a trial. You understand? You know, before a competent court of jurisdiction, before a court invested with that power to look into it.
Yeah, but just to be clear,
yes,
on this, it's on the Punch, and it says here, the appeal court upholds the FRSC's powers to impound vehicles and impose fines.
What I'm saying,
yes,
it must have been appealed. You understand? The reason of the lower court is very, very, very sound. You understand? Mm-hmm. When you say fine, like I said, you are moving from Ogba to Ikeja. Somebody stop you on the way, show you so. Is he invested with that power to adjudge you guilt? No. Prima facie evidence must be produced. After that prima facie evidence, you are sent to the appropriate court to look into it. A magistrate, like a traffic offense in Lagos, they will carry you to Shudans, other sundry places. They will carry you to court. You understand? So they don't just pick you on the road straight away and say you are guilty. No, you have to prove your case. It's as simple as ABC. That's illogical. If you are going that very side, illogical. Yes.
Let's come back to the conversation about
Yes.
the CMRIA certificate.
Yes.
NBA has stated its position.
Yes.
You have also clearly explained that it's illegal and they're basically putting something on nothing and expecting it to stand.
Yes.
Should the police decide that after their enlightenment, after talking to people about what this ECMRIS is about, that they decide to go ahead with it, what would be the next steps?
Like MB has threatened, they go to court. An individual too has the right, because I said he's wanting to do a right thing, and you have to do it in a right way. And when you are not invested with a power to do something, whatever you are doing there amounts to illegality. It's null and void to the extent of its inconsistency. I started from one place, the issue of issuance of certificate. You understand?
Yeah.
The legislation is usurpation, nothing but gross and violent usurpation of the legislation power, and it's an abuse of the power, it's an abuse of the Constitution, because they cannot usurp that very power. Who invests them with that authority? You understand me? Who invests them with that authority to issue? I think it's outside the confine, the power of the police to do that.
The police are insisting. In fact, I'm looking at.
They might be insisting.
They're saying, and I'm going to quote what was reported here. It says that the Force Public Relations Officer, ACP Olumuyiwa Adejobi, has faulted the report that the Nigerian Bar Association has given the Inspector General of Police, Kaide Egbetokun, a 7-day ultimatum to reverse the CMRIS system. He says no agency can take the police up on the initiative. He goes further to state that, it's been done right from time. He says that the police have the right and powers to initiate any approach to curb crimes and criminality in Nigeria as it's applicable in other crimes. That the police has been issuing CMR for decades, and so it's not even...
It's not creation. What we are seeing, that we have been doing something for quite long. Like the one I said, it was a challenge at the federal court. That we have been doing ageless. Does not mean that it's right. People, you might be capitalizing on the ignorance of the people, but when people come to the consciousness of or reality of the truth of a matter, then the veil of ignorance is lifted.
You spoke initially about abuse of power and corruption.
Yes.
Expand a little bit more on that. Why do you call it corruption?
Yes. The greatest problem in this country is the issue of corruption and impunity. at individual level, at institutional level, at corporate level, all there is issue of corruption and impunity. How do I mean? Essence of this something is nobody is actually forcing them. If they want to feed their data, there are other areas, in fact, where they have their data. In fact, I can tell you today, if you are coming like this, I've experienced it before. If your, what do you call it, your license, that's why we even say these people are do all these things in bad faith, malafide. You understand? Now, if police they see you like this, they put they punch their number into your computer. It will bring out all those facts. Whether your insurance is intact, whether your license is up to date.
Yep.
As of today, as I'm telling you. So all those things, I think it's a gold digging exercise. You understand? In order to generate revenue. You understand? And they have gone through it in a very wrong direction. You understand? Because all those things they are saying, they've been doing it. So I don't see any reason whatsoever, howsoever, why they should come. As far as many years back, police will go, you reach police, something like this, they punch your number into their computer and they will tell you whether your insurance has lapsed, whether your license has lapsed. They will tell you all those things.
Right.
So there is nothing extraordinary about this. So I think, like I said, it's the issue of corruption. You understand? Corruption and impunity, they go hands in hands, and they are wreaking havoc.
Right.
Yes, on the country.
Okay, now
and
just to quickly reiterate that the NBA, there's a bit of an issue as to who actually gave out the directive by the NBA. The Guardian newspaper reports that the Nigerian Bar Association has disclaimed a statement attributed to John Aikpopo Martins and Fumi Adeogun regarding the issuance of Central Motor Registry Information System. The NBA spokesperson Akorede Habib Lawal in a statement said the comment was made without the consent or authority of the association. NBA emphasized that Aikpopo Martins and Adeogun were removed from their positions as chairman and secretary of the NBA SPIDEL on February 29, 2024, and that their removal along with other executive members was followed by the appointment of a caretaker committee headed by Sir Steve Adeyi SAN. And this just to mention because, of course, that's the subject of the controversy. The statement allegedly released by the NBA directed to the Nigerian police force. But we hope that we can hear directly from the NBA. We can invite them to join us on the show. But regardless of what the NBA's position, you have shared with us what you think
yes,
the legal perspective is.
Their own internal politics, that's their own politics. But
right.
If you look at this thing down to earth, you will agree with that submission, undoubtedly.
I'm sure that we'll see more and more revelations coming as the day goes by. Steve Adamoye, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
This is still Breakfast Central. We'll go on a break. When we come back, we'll be reviewing the papers with you. Stay with us. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We'll be reviewing the front pages of the papers this morning. If you'd like to be a part of the conversation, we'll have the numbers to call scrolling on your TV screen. We're joined this morning by publisher of the niche newspaper, Ikechukwu Amechi. Good morning. It's a pleasure to have you.
Good morning, Olive. Always my pleasure.
Good to have you. Let's get into the Punch newspaper this morning and start with the Punch. On the front page of the Punch newspaper, OPS blames insecurity as food inflation hits 40.8%. NBS links inflation to rising prices of millet, gari, yam, fish, groundnut oil, others. Nasima, ICC, LCCI, others lament insecurity, seek rural infrastructure investments. Trump emerges Republican candidate, picks 39-year-old as running mate. We also have Umeoji projects over 1 trillion naira Zenith Bank profit in 2024. Cholera cases rise to 2,809 in 33 states and 148 local governments. Lagos allays fears over LCDAs, Oyo, Taraba set up panels. $1.8 billion fuel stolen from refineries in 9 years. That's not good. Excitement as UAE lifts visa ban on Nigerians. Never knew I would live to be 90, says Wale Soyinka. And final story. Court okays Kano Emirates, law repeal, sacks Bayero and others. That's all we have on the Punch newspaper.
All right. Move to the Daily Independent this morning. Federal government tackles hunger, gives 20 trucks of rice to each state and the FCT. Says it has identified the solution to food shortage. May review final resolution on minimum wage on Thursday. UAE lifts ban on Nigerian passport holders. Federal government moves to boost power sector investment, rolls out strategies. Herdsmen attack, 13 persons killed, 1 injured in two Bedouin communities. Dangote says the company's projected $30 billion revenue would boost Naira value. And we can also see here, worsening food crisis pushes inflation to 34.19%. Nigeria loses $9 billion yearly to illegal mining activities. And also pro-Wiki lawmakers claim shutdown of expenditure. And that's with regards the Rivers crisis. Stop planned nationwide protests against Tinubu, APC warns. And then court orders Bayero and others to stop parading themselves as emirs.
All right, now let's move to our final paper for this morning. Moving away from the emirs to the next paper, the Daily Trust, I believe. Yes, on the front page of the Daily Trust, bandits kill 4 and abduct 150 in Zamfara. 2 babies among abductees. These people have no shame, really. Some women escaped with broken limbs. PH refinery takes delivery of 1 million barrels of crude. Court restrains Bayero, 4 others from parading themselves as emirs. Hardship, don't stage protests. Clerics urge youth. Travel agents excited as UAE lifts visa ban on Nigerians. National Assembly mulls constitution review for INEC to conduct local government polls. Federal government donates 20 trucks of rice to each state and the FCT. Trump emerges presidential candidate, picks J.D. Vance as his running mate. Okay, I'm sure that will take the rice story because I'm sure he's very excited about federal government donating rice. Let's start with the UAE visa ban that has been lifted on, we could talk about that and, exactly, a number of people say that it's not something to be excited about, especially looking at the fact that there are criteria that have made it incredibly expensive. Even there's a document verification fee you'd have to pay to the tune of 640,000 naira without tax. That's minus the visa. So some people have said that in a way that all of this is happening because Nigeria went cap in hand to beg. But would you consider that a plus for this administration, for Festus Keyamo's time in office, or do you think that this was just really an insult, like many Nigerians on social media have said it is?
I'm not excited one way or the other. In fact, the visa ban in the first place pointed to how low Nigeria is being rated by the international community, as it were. And this is about the 4th time we are hearing this story about the visa ban being lifted. One only hopes that finally it has come to stay, that the visa ban has been lifted for good. But at the end of the day, it's neither here nor there, because the information minister said he was going to give us, there were no clarifications on the conditions that we had to meet for this so-called visa ban to be lifted. What did we have to give? What are those things? And like you said, look, we have groveled for too long. And for United Arab Emirates to subject Nigeria to all manner of indignities, it was last year, early in his presidency, that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu went to UAE, and of course his spokesperson, Ajuri Ngelale, issued a statement that everything had been concluded and that the visa ban had been lifted, and the Emirates will start flying back to Nigeria. That did not happen. The Emiratis issued a statement and said that there was no such agreement to the best of their knowledge. and it turned out that their own version of the story was true. So if now the visa has been lifted now finally, for me to jubilate, I need to know the conditions that Nigeria has to meet for this visa ban.
I mean, the fact that it is even such an important, detail, that the giant of Africa, the most populous black nation on earth, seems to be begging. That's what it seems like, and it may not be the case, but that's what it seems like. We're simply begging, and it's a plus, it's a win for an administration that a country has finally let Nigerian citizens to come back into their space. It's such an embarrassment.
It didn't seem, it was, because we've been on this for more than 1 year now in the Tinubu administration, and it has always been at every point in time, the government will announce the lifting as if it has won a lottery.
Yes, and another thing is, when countries go through situations like this, what you would expect is that they will go home and they would pick themselves up from where they are, and let these countries who have so-called given them bans realize that, we've made a mistake. This country is too valuable to us. But you can't really see a lot that has changed between when the ban was given and when now claiming that the ban is lifted. Nigeria hasn't given itself as a nation much value in the international community.
We don't have the capacity again. We've lost the capacity over the years. There was a time when if Nigeria sneezes, the whole of Africa, and in fact the international community will catch cold. For you to do anything in Africa, you must check the pulse of Nigeria. How will Nigeria react? Not anymore.
We've lost that influence. Right. Even traveling even within the continent. We saw how Africa's richest man said he needed 35 visas to be able to go within Africa. Yeah. It's not a good look. But let's move on from that conversation.
Yeah, I want us to talk about the story on the Punch this morning. It says $1.8 billion fuel stolen from refineries in 9 years, and that's from Haiti. So the problem with, these type of stories for me, it's not, about how shocking it is. That is one thing. Another thing is the fact that we can hear of this, and we're not hearing of it because there has been a forensic investigation and people have been arrested. There has been a forensic investigation, and people have been fired. It is just a story that makes the headlines and we just move on.
I think that is tragedy of the situation we have found ourselves in the country right now. In fact, one of my columnists, the guy who wrote this morning, that was actually the argument he was making in his piece, because he was saying that the Minister of Aviation, Festus Nakayamo, said last time that some private jets are being used to courier hard drugs. And the guy was saying, how on earth do we continue doing this? Who are these people? No government official. All we see, EFCC will come out and they throw a bomb. Nigerians are corrupt. If you see the fire that we have, you will weep. Everybody will come. Even when President Goodluck Jonathan was in office, don't forget, he said that, in fact, there are some Boko Haram operatives that are even operating within his government. Who are these people? Who are these people? So $1.something billion worth of crude oil, like you said, stolen. Are these people's spirits? Who has been punished? Who has been ever arrested in this country for this crude oil theft?
And can they boldly say that they're not aware of the people carrying out the theft?
That's the question I am asking. So it is not enough for people to come and insult our sensibilities every day and telling us how much crude oil is being stolen and how much Nigeria is losing, without saying we have made so and so arrest, and of course set example with people being prosecuted and sent to jail for what amounts to crime against the Nigerian state. Look, we can't continue this way. We can't continue this way. This This is simply dog whistling. They come and they psych you up. So thing has happened. And so, what do you want us to do? EFCC will wake up in the morning and say, people are planning to do this. Police will tell you, they have intel that people are trying to demonstrate, they are trying to do this. And so, why is it that we know people, or we know what Nigeria is losing, we know those who are committing economic sabotage, very grievous offense against the Nigerian state, yet nobody has been hauled before the Nigerian judiciary to say, for whatever it is worth, let us bring them there and let the judiciary do their worst. But at least we know that some people have been tried. Who are these people who are stealing this crude oil? Are they spirits?
And I think, like you said, it's one of the tragedies of Nigeria's story. The fact that, these things aren't enough for, they make headlines every other day, and, Nigerians get used to them as just another day in the news. It's no longer shocking.
And nobody reacts.
Absolutely nothing.
In other countries, some of these revelations are enough
for people to resign.
For people to resign. In the first place, our public officials have no shame. Even if you call them armed robbers, which some of them are, they won't give a damn, because they know there are no consequences for bad behavior. In any country where there are consequences for bad behavior, and then the populace, Nigerians themselves, no reaction.
Yeah. The ability to share a story like this, and again, the ability that Natives has to share a story like this, it doesn't come with assurance that it's over. So if they say $1.8 billion petrol has been stolen in 900 years or whatever, it's not coming with an assurance that that's the end of the theft.
Also, what is being stolen today is probably, as they were making those so-called revelations, what is being stolen today is probably more than what was stolen yesterday, and what is to be taken away tomorrow will be more than what is stolen today. So it is a vicious circle of criminality that all of us have come to accept as the way of life. It can't go well.
Okay, now just to mention to our audience before we get out of this segment, we can take one or two calls before we wrap up. Let us know what your thoughts are on any of the stories. Let's once again project the Daily Independent. The big story there talks about federal government tackling hunger, distributing 20 trucks of rice to each state, and the FCT says it has identified solution to food shortage. Should we applaud the federal government for doing this wonderful act of giving everybody trucks of rice?
Giving everybody 20 trucks of rice. Let us say, for instance, in
Lagos State.
In Lagos, you are bringing 20 trucks of rice in a state where we have a population of over 20 million people.
So one truck for 1 million people.
No. All right. Well, before you explain the Lagos scenario, let's take Njoku from Abuja. Good morning, Njoku. Thank you very much for calling. Please go ahead with your comment. Njoku, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm online. I'm online.
All right, please go ahead with your comment.
Yes, the man by your side there, I love what he was saying. And both of you people are doing great. You see, one funny thing in this in Nigeria is that you people are doing the right thing. The people cannot even acknowledge what people are doing. The most important thing in this Nigeria is this. We love embracing bad things, like what that man is saying. You do bad things here. They are not, even the politicians are. Do you know one funny thing? I discovered that 99% of Nigeria are self-employed. Because I believe that 80% of Nigerians are civil servants. This country could have even shut down. Take it or you leave it. Because if you go some ministries, you see that nobody's there, and they'll be collecting money from those ministries. Look at what you're saying. A whole president will come to the screen to tell us that, yes, I will have a line with Emirates or Dubai, whatever. What a shame. It's a shameful thing to all. 1976, when they came to borrow money from Nigeria, when Obasanjo was a president, they said that there's any good thing that will come out from the desert, Dubai. Just not even up to 2 states or a state in Nigeria. Today we are begging them for us to be a friend to them. It's a shameful thing to us. On a serious note, I love that man. He's telling us the truth. And you people are doing the right job. Anytime I see your program, I always, in fact, I don't know how I even stop going where I'm going, because people are telling Nigerians the truth, and they don't want to follow up what people are saying. This country needs to shut down.
Thank you very much, Njoku, for highlighting
Maybe not
that.
shut down, but
So you were giving the Lagos example.
Yeah, so it then means if we are sincere to ourselves that perhaps a council ward will get a bag of rice for other people, Nigerians may as well brace up to every family getting a mudu. And that is a tragedy that this is what the government is touting as having found a solution to hunger and the food crisis we have in this country. You know, every day, the presidency of Bola Tinubu unravels, and it is so surprising that President Tinubu is this clueless. When Jonathan was in office, they said he was clueless. This is the height of cluelessness. President Tinubu and the APC, since 2015, they have displayed a sense of misalignment with reality that beggars belief.
all right, hold on. Let's speak with Williams, and I'll also chip in on that. Williams, good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning. Please, I just want to say 2 things first. On the issue of 20 trucks to about 36 states, I think if we're even sharing, it cannot be on a balanced equation. That will not be justice, because there are states like the other speaker was speaking earlier. Lagos has 20 million people. And now Gombe has just about 3 million people. Anyway, maybe they want to look at it based on the level of income of everybody. And then the second thing I want to talk about, the issue of UAE or no UAE, for me, it's about gripping up our foreign affairs and then our foreign policy. What do we really want? And then, like somebody said, a beggar country, you don't have anything to say. Then the last thing I want to talk about is something we spoke about 2 weeks ago on the issue of presidential aircraft. I want to reaffirm that the issue of presidential aircraft, they already have bought the aircraft, because it has been confirmed that the aircraft has left Germany yesterday, and it has been seen with the seal of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in France. That's where I think I've forgotten the name of the company. They're in charge of like the presidential fleet of Nigeria. And PAF, that's Presidential Air Fleet of Nigeria, has also confirmed that the current aircraft that the president is using is very serviceable. The Boeing 737-200 series that he's using is serviceable, and it's just only 19 years old. What's the rush? Why do you want to change it? You are telling us, every one of us, to come together. Let's take things for now. Let us bear the pain so that we'll have a better Nigeria. Why are you in a hurry? Because a check to use that, the Airbus that he bought now, is a check that used it. It was taken away from him.
Thanks a lot for your contributions. Thanks for calling. That's the only call or the last call we're taking this morning. I wanted to chip in, from what you were saying, about how the economic policies and the governance basically that Nigerians have experienced from the APC since 2014, till date, seems to just continue to, be shocking. I've heard a theory that it's not because they are clueless. It's not because we've continued to have clueless persons in government. It almost doesn't make any sense that for 9 straight years, we've continued to have terrible economic decisions back to back, all the while. At some point, it might start to seem like it's intentional. And that's a theory that I've heard somewhere, that at some point, it's not going to be that these people just don't know what they're doing or just don't have, brilliant economic theories. It might even be that it's intentional. And that's a very scary, thing to think about.
Yeah, I may, as seducing as that line of thought may be, my thinking, and I wrote copiously on this in the 8 years of the Buhari presidency. Buhari simply does not get it. He has no idea what it means to be a leader. And I ask people, look, Osa, we do a lot of terrible things in this country. When Buhari was in office and some people were hailing him as the best thing that has happened to Nigeria, I ask one simple question. If you are running a 10 million naira worth of company that is in crisis and you need a turnaround manager, would you hire somebody of Buhari's competence and capacity as the turnaround manager? Immediately you ask them that question, they freeze because they won't. And now you think that the person who has no capacity to manage your 10 million naira worth of business can now somehow manage Nigeria. Is it possible? These guys, it will take extreme level of wickedness for people to know that this thing will hurt and still go ahead and punish the people for the sake of punishing the people. For me, these guys don't get it. They don't know what to do. Look at Tinubu, from one policy to the other. And some people had the temerity to tell us that taking 20 trucks of rice to every state, they have finally found the solution.
All right, hold on. I want you to quickly just speak. We have about a minute to go. Stop planned nationwide protests against Tinubu, APC won. Just quickly react to that.
Of course, now they are doing that because they know that Nigerians are so fickle-minded and so pliable. Look, this same President Muhammad Buhari in 2012, January 2012, when Jonathan removed oil
subsidy,
this same Bola Ahmed Tinubu, then as an ex-governor, wrote a piece in his newspaper, The Nation, where he extolled the right of Nigerians to protest. What has changed? What has changed? Nigerians have a right to protest. And unless there is protest, unless people show their displeasure, these guys won't take it serious. So that APC is warning Nigerians or begging Nigerians or whatever they are doing, what else if the people can't protest? Do they expect them to carry arms? No. They have a right to voice out their displeasure with what is now going on. So it is harebrained for anybody to ever think that we can legislate protest against people protesting what has become their lot. Also, you need to go to the market. Even this one, MBS, National Bureau of Statistics, released figures yesterday that food inflation is now 40% Look, Nasima, if you read the Vanguard of today, is even saying that food inflation is well over 90%.
All right, we need to go. Ikechukwu Amechi, as always, we appreciate your time this morning. The viewers absolutely love you. And we look forward to seeing you again sometime next time. Thanks for stopping by. But, you know, Ikechukwu Amechi shared what he has to say. But let's share with you what Nigerians are saying. Stay with us. Welcome once again. Nigeria's manufacturers continue to face hurdles due to economic conditions. Access to forex, naira devaluation, high interest rates, poor power supply, and, of course, infrastructural challenges mar the progress of Nigeria's multi-billion-dollar industry. According to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, 776 manufacturers shut down operations just last year.
Well, though the current economic tide in the country seems to have manufactured more problems for the sector, stakeholders remain optimistic as the federal government and the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria continue to discuss the way out. Joining us this morning is Chairman Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Papa Branch, Engineer Frank Ike Onyebu. Good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. My pleasure.
All right, last year...
Just make a little correction. Now I'm the immediate past chairman of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Papa Branch.
Okay.
Not the current chairman.
All right, the immediate past chairman. Thank you for highlighting that. 2023, the numbers were not looking good. We saw about 767 manufacturers shut down and over 300 manufacturers were distressed. Can you give us a picture of what it's looking like in 2024?
It's actually not looking good at all. The situation is getting worse by the day, I'm afraid to say. And we've been crying to the government, saying that the implication of manufacturers shutting down their businesses is going to be very dire on the economy. You know, the amount of employment manufacturers take, as a matter of fact, in every developed economy, manufacturing sector plays the major role, irrespective of the natural resources the country has. Nigeria is blessed with abundant natural resources, and we'll be talking about diversification of the economy for a very long time. It appears that our mineral resources has really taken us away from the diversification efforts, and not much has been achieved over the years. So I really don't have any good news. Unless the government really takes action, and action has to be immediate.
Yeah, when you talk about immediate, you've not, I mean, can you say if you've seen any change in policy or direction with the current administration since they came into office?
Yeah, well, the fact is that we have never been short of policies. It's actually the implementation that's the problem. We have a lot of policies that, if properly implemented, could move the manufacturing sector and the entire economy forward. But unfortunately, most of the time we just hear pronouncements. Like recently, we just had a summit in Abuja at the villa, and we had a lot of government officials coming in, and a lot of pronouncements were made. We have all identified the need of the manufacturing sector to the economy. Everybody is saying the same thing. However, are we going to get anything implemented? Are we going to get some of the promises that were made implemented? That's another story altogether, because we've heard a lot of such promises in the past, and most of the time, the government officials are supposed to implement these policies don't go ahead to do it. But we really need the manufacturing sector to be working in Nigeria if we want this economy to move.
We've seen the pharmaceutical sectors, pharmaceutical manufacturers have complained grossly about how, you know, we're seeing multinationals leaving the country because they're not able to match what the current realities are. Which would you say are the most hard-hit sectors when we look at the manufacturing sector, the most hard-hit industries?
I think it cuts across the entire sector. The pharmaceutical sector, yes, the government needs to support the manufacturing sector, because right now the state of the health sector is really bad, and the pharmaceutical sector, if properly propped up, could actually go a long way to helping the lift up the state of manufacturing, the health sector. Unfortunately, over the years, like I said, we have all had rhetorics. Now we have an executive order, I suppose, to help the pharmaceutical sector. that is a very good step in the right direction. I hope the government will clearly implement this. I also hope that this will be extended to other sectors because all the sectors are actually suffering. They look at the textile sector, as a matter of fact, it cuts across all the sectors of the manufacturing, all the sectors within the manufacturing bracket. So government needs to really do something, not just in terms of the imports, maybe duties and all that. We need to have tax breaks. We need to have a lot of incentives that we also include availability of forex. We need to have incentives like availability of funds. Right now, we have a situation where loans are being, interest rates on loans is up to 30-35%. This cannot work. There's no way the manufacturing sector can survive under this interest rate regime. There are so many other issues, including the issue of even security, because sometimes people have moved backwards to try to get their raw materials locally. But with the issue of security, it's very difficult to get some of these local raw materials. Sometimes the local raw materials are even more expensive than the imported ones.
You mentioned that you had some deliberations with the government recently. Were you able to express these things to the federal government?
Certainly, these issues were expressed to the government, and we actually extracted some promises from the government, and we're hoping that these promises will be implemented. Everybody recognizes, the vice president was there, a lot of ministers were there, and we had frank discussions with these government officials, and they all understand the role the manufacturing sector plays in the economy. And at least we are hopeful that something will come out of this. But right now, I cannot tell you that anything has been done, but I know it takes time, and something has to be done urgently, to be very frank with you, because a lot of factories are actually closing shop. One of the issues raised
Okay.
Sorry.
Please go ahead.
One of the issues within that summit is the issue of electricity, the new electricity tariff. That tariff, if the government doesn't handle it well, could actually prove very deadly for the manufacturing sector. There's no way you could just implement, have an increase in tariff to the extent of 300% at one go. What we told the government that what they could have done is, yes, they want to remove the subsidy on electricity, they could have done it gradually. You need to do it step by step. You don't just, somebody that, for instance, I was paying 60 million naira per month on electricity bill. Suddenly it's slammed with a bill of 180 million. How does it muster the funds? It's not as if you have funds lying around anywhere. And by the time you manage that particular industry, the factory manages to get scrap around and get this kind of money, and he pays, the next bill is on the way, and then the next bill. So it's actually an existential crisis that's coming on the manufacturing sector right now.
As quickly as we can, would you say that the executive order signed by the president to boost local manufacturing of healthcare products was, any help?
Certainly to be of help, and we are hopeful that it will be extended to other sectors within the manufacturing market, because if something is not done quickly, it's actually going to be very fatal. And I'm hopeful because sometimes some of these policies, the implementation is very slow. I know a lot of paperwork has to go into it, but there are always bottlenecks. Sometimes I'm afraid even some of the government institutions are creating the bottleneck because in the name of getting revenue for the same government that's actually issued the executive order. Sometimes we have problems with the customs. The government has issued an executive order, and then the custom on its own needs to have all the documentation. And of course, they are right to have documentation, but they should not deliberately block some of the moves by government in the name of increasing their revenue.
All right, Mr. Ayebu, just to mention a number, that's what I want, just a number. Between 1 to 10, how would you rate your level of trust that you have in the current administration to fix these things? 1 to 10.
I wouldn't want to get into politics or well, yeah, I can say the administration is still young, 1 year plus, but
that's okay. I just wanted a figure, so we'll know where we stand. But thank you very much. We'll monitor these things and see how things turn out. It's not looking good, and like you said, it's an existential crisis at this point for the manufacturers here in Nigeria. But thanks for your time this morning. We loved speaking with you, and we wish you a great day ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. All right, and now let's share with you what Nigerians are saying.
What ought to have been a feeling of excitement has been dampened by the anger that we've seen across board on social media. Maybe not just anger, but a feeling of being insulted. Nigeria has announced that it has signed an agreement to lift the visa ban by the United Arab Emirates. Therefore, Nigerians who wish to travel to the Middle Eastern country can now be issued visas starting from the 15th of July 2024. Now, the reactions to this, or why it has been dampened, or the excitement has been trampled upon, would be, of course, because of the latest addition. We have seen that there are new requirements, a document verification that is required for Nigerians to be able to travel to the UAE. Says to visit the UAE with a Nigerian passport, it is mandatory to first obtain a document verification number, DVN, before applying for your visa. In accordance with the new visa issuance guidelines established by the government of the United Arab Emirates, this regulation ensures that all necessary documents are digitally verified and authenticated prior to visa issuance, and individuals below the age of 13 do not require a DVN for their visa applications. Now, this isn't just all that we've seen. Some Nigerians have then gone ahead to try to make the application. One of them is OC Suave, who says there is a charge of 687,000 naira if you want to apply for a visa to the UAE for document verification. Just wanted to put that out. And then he shares a screenshot of him actually trying. This is the screenshot here, the document verification hub, payment method, that's the option there. Now let's scroll up to see how much it actually costs. It comes up to 688,000 naira. Yes, that's his name there. Applicant's name. He puts his name there and he puts the fee. Now, if you look on the website as well and you're asking how much does it cost, it says you'll be charged a total of 640,000 naira, excluding VAT for each application. Once paid, this fee is non-refundable. It is my understanding that maybe the 640K is the official fee without VAT, and then when you add the VAT, then maybe comes up to 688,000 naira. So for the purpose of this conversation, we're going to settle at 640,000 naira, which is the official announcement. Now, the first tweet is from Adesheun for you to see. It says, HM, this was a reply to someone that says, how is it justifiable for the UAE to charge Nigerians a sum of 640,000 naira for document verification prior to visa application? This is different from the visa application cost. To make matters worse, the validity of the verified document is just 14 days. This is exploitative. Now, the next tweet is from Yemi Zan. Yemi Hazan says, imagine UAE asking for 640K before Nigerians can apply for a visa. That's a different level of sea finish. We have Emmanuel Chisom. Emmanuel says, these guys went cap in hand in shame to UAE. Once you pay 640,000 naira and your visa application is denied, you shout, Akombi, Akombi, Akombi 3 times and drink a glass of water. May this favor me and my family. Shameless lots, of course. He was, of course, being sarcastic. Wavy says, it's because they know we are desperate and they're trying to milk it. If only these guys didn't repeatedly lie about them reopening their borders to us, maybe they'd have had a better bargaining chip to use. But alas, this right here is the reality of Nigerians who are looking to go from Nigeria to the UAE. So it's not been a very good look. It's also important that we probably hear conversations about the renegotiation of some sort, such that we can then start to see a decent price that shows that there is respect to Nigeria. But we're just going to have to wait and see what the thoughts are regarding. You can share your thoughts at News Central TV, your thoughts regarding the UAE visa ban. Osage, would you be going to the UAE? Now that the visa ban has been lifted, you pay 640,000 naira for this, and then you pay the visa.
No, not at all.
It's sad, but unfortunately,
I don't think it's worth it. I have personal business there. I have some family there.
Exactly.
But I don't think it's worth, 640 naira for some verification.
740,000 naira. The UK doesn't charge that much.
Yeah.
The US doesn't charge that much. I don't even think that Canada charges that much.
No, I don't.
And especially because I hear, I mean, I haven't applied yet. We're waiting to see more information come out. But I hear that's a 1-month validity period. And it's really sad because a number of us actually have family who live in the UAE and want to go and see them. But then you think about all the expenses. There's this one, there's the visa fee, there's the flight fare, which is really ridiculous.
I mean, my family is worth anything, but, to just travel to the UAE, I don't think so. And, once again, it would be great if Nigeria had, was open enough to let us know what type of agreement they had with the UAE to lead to this, but I mean, I'm particularly excited, and just like Chukwuamechi said, I think we should even be ashamed that we're talking about this.
Man, anyway, these are the conversations this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back again tomorrow. We have the news coming up at 9, and then there's more shows. Jasiri comes up at 10 a.m. And we look forward to seeing more of our conversations, interesting you, and you joining us on social media at News Central TV. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaugi Ogbonwam.
See you tomorrow.